Hi, it's Chris Titley here today, and on today's podcast, we're joined by Justin Hales, the CEO and founder of Camplify. Justin, great to see you again, mate.
Yeah, how's it going, Chris? Great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Appreciate the invitation and look forward to telling a story about Camplify.
Thank you. Yeah, the last time we caught up was, I think it was at a Morgan's conference. Would have been 24, I reckon, maybe at Noosa or somewhere in and around there.
Yeah. Those conferences are always fantastic. There's so many great presenters there. They're really a great thing to go to for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, for the listeners out there that have zero understanding or idea what Camplify is or does, I'd love you to describe it.
Yeah, so I guess we kind of started as kind of a bit like Airbnb, but for caravans, camper vans, motorhomes. We've kind of grown a little bit since then, but essentially that's what we do. We run a marketplace to connect RV owners and RV renters together. We run that marketplace in Australia, New Zealand, Spain, UK, Austria, Netherlands, and Germany. And then we've kind of expanded then into other products, including insurance and commercial and all that kind of stuff. But I guess we'll get into a bit more of those details as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea, you are the founder of the business. Where did the idea come from in those early days when you had this idea and like maybe there's an opportunity here?
Yeah, really, it was just my wife sort of saying to me, "Hey, I've never been away camping or caravanning before. Let's give it a go. Go hire a van." And I tried to do it, and it was just hard to do, really challenging. And I thought that's a great opportunity. Went through the NRMA Business Accelerator program with them becoming our first investor. And it kind of just skyrocketed from there. We had so much interest in the business and so many people on both sides of the marketplace. But, really we were, today we still have the same issue that we actually have more demand than we have supply. So, lots and lots of people wanting to be a part of this business. And it's really just been about us looking at those challenges and blockages and obstacles every step of the way and solving them as we grew.
Do you remember the first iteration of the website or your first sale per se?
Yes. So our first website was very, very basic. It was what we would call some magic in the background, where it looked like it was a platform, but actually it was just the team with a whiteboard connecting people together and processing those rentals. We actually have in the office here. We kept that original whiteboard and we've had it framed and it's up on the wall with those customers. So it's a pretty cool souvenir.
Absolutely, mate. That would have been an exciting time. And looking back on that time now, you'd be like, oh, well, that's a good memory to have. But also, where the business is now. I'm curious how the platform actually works then from a consumer point of view and also from an RV owner's point of view.
Yeah, so now I guess we provide that entire process. Really, we are the glue that holds that transaction together. We provide all the things that the owner and the hirer needs to be able to transact. So that is from the owner's side of things. We provide protection products so that their vehicle, is fully covered if there's an accident or etc. We've set up our own insurance captive to manage that process and a mutual that surrounds that. So we provide that full protection and insurance products for those owners. We provide the contracts, we manage the disputes, we provide the platform and the payment gateway. From the high risk perspective, we insure their gap cover, so their excess, if you like, and provide that as a product that they can choose what level of exposure they want. And we then provide them with matching services, concierge services, and you name it, to be able to connect those two parties together and provide that full transaction. So really, we are that full end-to-end life cycle management of that transaction.
Before we go on to how you exactly make money and where it all comes from, you did talk about the demand exceeding supply. I'm curious, we live in Australia, the macro conditions of holidaying and moving around the country. Can you want to give a bit of an understanding of that market?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting market, and it's been through some interesting ups and downs. We, sort of on the back of COVID, huge, explosive growth with a lot of people wanting to do domestic holidays. then sort of a bit of a rebound of a lull, and then we go through different weather issues that we see impact different regions, and then now obviously the high fuel prices. So generally overall, that in Australia there's roughly just under 1 million RVs in the Australian market, and that's been growing pretty steadily at roughly about sort of 5-6% a year. So it's a good market. We have a lot of consumer demand. We have a lot of great holiday park assets around the country, and really it's an industry that people who are not from that historically, so they're not generational caravan camper owners, they really find getting into that market a little bit of a challenge. So we're a really easy way for them to do that. They can go and try something. They can see what works for them. They might just do the occasional rental, or they might be doing a try before they buy as well.
A couple of questions on the mechanics of the marketplace and looking at other marketplaces around the world, and the Airbnb and the likes of Airtasker, etc. I'm curious around how you smooth out, I suppose, the cycles that you talk about, the COVID boom and then other things, the softening and the fuel prices, and some mechanisms around revenue from the business to kind of make it a little bit proof when the markets are a little bit shaky.
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple of things from our perspective. So, number one is being in more than one geographic location. It certainly helps. We can experience, good demand or supply in different regions, geographically as that occurs. And we are a very seasonal business. So, pretty much, Europe is all guns blazing right now. Australia and New Zealand don't really kick off their, kind of season until September, October. So that helps smooth that out. We then also have, built our own insurance products. So we're insuring those vehicles 24/7. Even when they're not rented, we provide that protection products for those vehicles. And we are now expanding that product into just general retail. So anyone that owns an RV in the Australian market, you don't have to be someone who wants to rent it. You can just be anyone that owns a vehicle who wants to insure it. So we're expanding into that market. We also have a kind of commercial division where we do lots of stuff with insurance companies and government departments to provide temporary housing. So that's more of a steady state in terms of those rentals and their long-term ones. So there might be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months to provide kind of disaster recovery housing, or people that need that support if they've had an issue with their current housing.
The discovery piece in regards to Camplify, people knowing it, being an RV owner, knowing that you exist, how you operate, etc. How have you gone about managing that as opposed to a billboard everywhere and just spending lots of money?
Yeah, look, I think two-sided marketplaces are always tricky in terms of that supply-demand dynamic, and making sure that you're always looking at where is the dynamic headed, and how do you make sure that you're marketing towards the right side of the seesaw, which is always changing. So we do a lot of marketing around owner education. So actually getting the owner community understanding how it works, the benefits of it, the tax benefits, the distilling the myths, etc., etc. So we'll either run online campaigns, or we'll do meetups and events. We'll be at caravan shows. We'll do online webinars, you name it, to be able to sort of provide that information to those potential owners. And then on the hirer side, a lot of it is either educational through content. So we have ambassadors that create content, go and take vehicles away, produce that content and put it out through their networks and through ours. We do obviously SEO, SEM, very well. And overall, when we look at our spend in terms of our revenue to marketing investment, we're extremely efficient. So we operate, roughly at about kind of 10% of revenue spent on marketing, where other marketplaces, particularly in our sector, will probably be normally operating at about 40% of revenue. So we do that very, very well, and we've been able to leverage that as a key way to make sure the business is efficient.
I bet you when you first started the business, social media influencing and ambassadors probably wasn't on the cards, but that is the seesaw that you mentioned around targeting people different ways. How au fait are you with the actual demographic that you have and how they view different advertisements and marketing messages?
Yeah, so we have different market segments and sort of brand personas that we have. And it depends on the time of year as to which one of those they may be. So if we look at a hirer, for example, right now we're probably sitting in the kind of traditional sort of grey adventurer space. Older people, no kids, empty nesters, looking to get out and explore. So we'll do stuff with our ambassadors around this time of year. We'll do things around one of our other big demographics is kind of the real novice first-time campers. So one of our ambassadors, she's a recent migrant to Australia from India and has been doing a great job of actually educating that community about camping and how that fits in the Australian lifestyle and segment and the parks you can go to. And it actually fits that demographic really well in terms of what they're looking for on a holiday. So we have lots and lots of different subsectors, if you like, that we try to address and provide that education to.
And I'm thinking out aloud here in regards to stakeholders of parks and tourism boards and areas, etc. How have you worked with some of these areas to go, you've got to explore this? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, look, we are very big proponents of PR and partnerships. So, we're always doing new things to be able to promote the industry overall. The more people out there caravanning and camping, the better it is for us. So, for example, just last week, I'm pretty regular on the Today Show. So I did my top 5 caravan and camping spots for the upcoming summer, and provided that audience with maybe some undiscovered gems of that sector. And then we sort of work with various different organisations to be able to promote a region or do a lot of brand partnerships as well. So we've done some great stuff in the past with Billabong, for example. We've done some stuff with Great Northern. So yeah, we're always sort of working with those different brands and different regions to be able to sort of promote the sector overall.
You've talked about the different revenue streams and smoothing out by geography and different types of, I suppose, verticals that you play in. Tech companies, they talk about ARR and recurring revenues and SaaS and all that sort of stuff. How have you thought about that? Being a platform, being a tech company.
Yeah, well, I guess, like I said before, we are quite seasonal and that can create a lumpiness in terms of revenue. We always see that our second half of the year is much stronger than our first half of the year, for example. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to provide, those insurance and protection products, because they are a recurring revenue. And so, we kind of know at the start of the year how many customers are on that product, what we forecast in terms of churn and new members, and then we can sort of lock that revenue in for the year. So that helps us definitely in that regard. And that's something we're looking to grow and get more and more customers onto that sector. But on top of that, we also have great pipeline visibility in terms of people actually booking into the future. So a lot of our customers will book, 2 to 3 months into the future. So we can kind of look now and look at where we're tracking versus this time last year from a booking perspective on a month-by-month basis to see, are we ahead, are we behind in certain months? Where do we need to pump marketing in terms of different regions to be able to look at those and then look at the trend lines in terms of how that's working towards those previous year's cycles. So we have really good forecastability in terms of the overall holiday sector, if you like.
It wouldn't be 2026 without a podcast talking about tech and AI. I'm curious around your thoughts on tech and AI internally and also externally to your customers in the industry.
Yeah, we've actually lent pretty heavily into it over the last couple of years. So we made the decision about 2 years ago that we would be an AI first company, and we gave all of our staff members access to the tool set that we had chosen, and then we actually have promoted and increased the usage of that internally to be able to really accelerate the business from an AI perspective. So we had to have things like, we have an AI Contributor of the Month award, where someone actually does a demo of what they've used AI to build. We have our customer service people who are traditionally on the phones actually helping customers. They're now contributing to code and fixing bugs in the system. We've built lots of agent-based processes through the business, but also probably our biggest acceleration through that process has been data and how we actually look at data, examine data, and how we then make decisions based on that data in a dynamic fashion. So, I'd say we're pretty advanced compared to a lot of other businesses around that.
Just thinking around feedback from users and RV holders, and then also innovation within. Are you getting a bit more of that now with AI? Like, what if? And let's just test it.
Yeah, look, I think we're getting we can do lots of A/B testing. We can also do lots of kind of analysis of what's coming in terms of the reasons why people are using the platform. So one of the things that we identified, this is just a kind of a silly example, but a few years ago we identified that people were actually renting from us because they were going to equestrian events. So they were towing a horse trailer, and then they were getting one of our customers to drop a van off so they could stay on site at the equestrian event because they couldn't tow a van. So they weren't doing that. They were traditionally staying in a swag. So, that was a great fit for our customer base. And we identified that through literally someone actually reading the messages between the hirer and the owner and seeing, what's happening with these. And now what we can actually do is do that at a mass level with AI and look for trends. So we can say, actually, we can see a trend in people using the platform for X, Y, and Z, because we can look at all of those messages. We can look at how the two parties are interacting together, and then we can make a decision based on that. So we can say, okay, well, here's a new subsector we didn't realise was using the platform, or an opportunity, and we can accelerate an investment in marketing into that sector, for example.
That's very interesting. I'm sure the airlines do that when Coldplay is playing in Sydney 3 months out or 4 months out, and you can see potentially some data of events and things like that. I'm curious again, like the macro events, the things you can't control. How do you go with that, whether it be the weather or COVID or things that potentially could hinder the performance, even though you might have some forward bookings?
Yeah, look, it can be a challenge from time to time, particularly around things like bushfires, for example. And we haven't had any major ones for a little while in the Australian market, but that can be an issue when you have those sort of short-term cancellation events happen. We've tried to sort of counteract that by providing travel insurance to our customers, so that we do have both sides of the marketplace have that protection in there. And then generally, fortunately, I guess from our perspective, when we do see those disasters happen, then on the back end is when we start to work with governments on disaster recovery housing. So it does kind of smooth itself out in a lot of ways, through the platform.
You talked about partnerships and testing and learning and A/B testing, and you've got a managed services pilot with JB Group. I'm curious what that rollout could mean and what you're thinking around the partnership.
Yeah, look, it's been a really interesting test to see what that has done. So, we've done that at 2 locations so far. We've put depot managers in place at those 2 locations. And interestingly, what we're actually seeing is that we have more of a traditional hirer. So rather than someone online booking, we've got people actually going into the depot saying, hey, I'm interested. They want to talk to someone. They want to see the vehicle. They want to, then look at when do I book? And so that's actually significantly different audience to what we had before. And what we're finding is that average booking value is actually quite a lot higher than what our traditional average booking value has been online. So that's something that we're looking to roll out more and more. The way we do it is we basically take customers' vehicles who don't want to manage it themselves. We put them into that program. We manage it on their behalf, and then we run that as almost like our own rental fleet on behalf of the owners in those regions. It's worked really effectively, and we've had lots of try before you buy rentals through those locations as well, which has only sort of helped JB to sell vehicles at those locations. So that's been a good win-win. And it is fairly early days. We've been running that program now for about sort of 3 months, but so far the feedback and the process has been really excellent. So now we're sort of looking to roll it out to probably another 10 locations over the next 12 months.
How often would one buy an RV in terms of the cycles of tech and the latest versions, etc.?
Yeah, we tend to tell our customers on the platform that around about 4 years is probably about the right time to own one. You've got to look at all the things in terms of usage, most modern tech, but then also when's the right time to sell it in terms of the return on investment. And a lot of the rental industry is driven on that process of buy well, rent high, sell high, and so it's getting those right cycles in place to be able to get that great return.
And what do you do with your super users in your group? You would have identified through your data the super users. Is there some sort of super users club out there, and how do you kind of wine and dine them?
Yeah, we do. So we have super users, but also we have premium members, I guess, which have a higher level of account and provide extra levels of service to them. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had an owners conference in Australia where we had around about, I think it's about 100, 120 owners there who are kind of those top level owners, and talking to them about upcoming tech releases, allowing them to have input into how the platform can evolve for them. Our insurance team there talking about claims and improvement in claims cycles, etc. And also some owner education from tourism boards and holiday parks as to what they're doing and what they're seeing in the industry as well. So, I think they all got a huge amount of value out of it, which is great.
In regards to the decision to purchase, is there any kind of tailwind or headwind that you would visibly notice in the economy when people want to potentially buy?
Yeah, look, I think we have, I guess, right now is a good example where we saw, a bit of a shock in, kind of May and June. And then now it's kind of sort of normalized a little bit. And, even though fuel prices are higher than they were, relatively speaking, this is a cheap holiday compared to, an overseas European holiday, for example. So, we definitely have some great opportunities in the Australian market right now. And so what we try to do is educate our people who want to buy a vehicle as to what we're seeing in terms of demand. So, right now, if you wanted to get your best bang for buck, you'd buy a motorhome and you'd stick it in Perth because that's where our strongest demand is and where we're seeing the greatest return on the investment. And someone might buy, for example, one of our employees just a couple of days ago bought second-hand 6-berth motor home with about 80,000 Ks on it for around about 100 grand. And he'll expect to do somewhere between kind of $60,000 to $70,000 in rental a year. And then, probably keep that for a couple of years and probably then look to sort of offload that for, probably around $60,000. So, he'll make a great return on that investment in that market.
So, Justin, have you coordinated the RV managed fund yet, where people can invest in people that invest in this? Because it sounds like a decent return.
Not quite yet, but certainly as we look to roll out these managed services depots, there'll be opportunities for sure.
Interesting. Okay. No, I'm thinking a bit outside the square there, because it sounds like a 60 to 70 grand back on a 100 grand investment plus potential resale. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also curious in and around the whiz bang tech that comes out, the products that come in, the accessories of RV, how you play into that market. Does it affect you at all, or do people sort of talk about stuff and therefore it gets engagement?
Little bits and pieces. I think probably one of the biggest innovations in the last couple of years has probably been how you can remotely manage battery systems. So, for example, if your hire is out in the middle of nowhere and they've all of a sudden had an issue, as an owner, if you can log in and check the battery system and check the issues and restart things, etc., then that's a big advantage. It makes it a lot easier as an owner and a hirer. So there's those kind of innovations. Probably the biggest one right now is EVs. So we have quite a few people now building EV camper vans and motorhomes, and so that's obviously EV's been around for a long time, but the kind of the mass market of them, and particularly ones that have a lot bigger battery range and faster charge cycles, are really going to change the camper van industry in everywhere, but in particular in Australia, where we drive long kilometres. So that's really a huge innovation that we see that will have a massive impact on the industry overall, and I think provide a big uplift in the overall hiring space.
Yeah, I was thinking about smoothing of the business, and we talk about geography and different products, etc. That'll definitely smooth the petrol price.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And not just that, but it also then just contributes to a greener holiday. And just when you're in the middle of nowhere, don't have to run generators. You don't have to rely on extended life batteries and solar. The whole thing actually connects together. You have products that are purpose built for battery usage, so you can run 48-volt power. You can run a whole range of different things, and as we see the BYD charging network being rolled out into the Australian market, they're talking about 15-minute charges, for example. So it really does lend itself to a fantastic road trip holiday with that sector.
The feedback that you get from people around the chatter and the industry, and we talked about the accessories and the actual cost of things and the turnover and the technology. I'm curious around the feedback you get from people that have an RV holiday and then will buy an RV, that they're repeat customers or they're repeat holidays, they must do this again, or is it sometimes just a bit one-offy?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of both. We average kind of around about 30% of our customers are return customers. That's in the Australian market, a lot less in New Zealand, because a lot of that customer is an inbound customer from overseas markets. But in Australia is probably the best example of that. So we do have lots of people that will do this because their kids' school camp is going away on a father-daughter, father-son holiday, and they go, great, I'm going to go grab an RV and do that. But it's not my primary holiday. All those kind of things. So we service lots of different markets, lots of different holiday types. And I guess what we really do is actually provide the freedom of not having to own it. So you can make those choices and say, I'm going to do an RV holiday this year, and next year I'll go overseas, or the following year we're going to do an Airbnb, whatever you might want to do. Whereas if you buy one, that you're kind of locked in. That's your holiday for the next however long, many years.
Now, when you describe your company to investors, you are a listed company, and every day the stock goes up and down accordingly to expectations, etc. In my head, you're in the travel business, you're in the marketplace business, you're in the car business. There's a lot of different things. How do you describe it?
Yeah, we say that we are that RV life cycle business. So we really want to be able to be in the position where we're providing that full sector of services to those customers. We've just recently launched our classifieds platform, so in a buy-sell platform. So we're going to get to a point eventually where you can buy an RV through us, you can have the insurance through us, you can rent it through us, you can hire through us, you can sell it through us. And so that's really the overall position that we want to be in, that we can provide that full process to the end-to-end customer and to be able to provide all of those products along that life cycle journey.
I would imagine there are competitors in those various silos or various verticals, but maybe not the one-stop shop.
Yeah, correct. There's lots of different, car sales, for example, has their classifieds platform. I think the advantage that we have is that, number one, end-to-end experience, but number two, that data layer to be able to actually look at each one of those different customer segments, be able to have that full service history and service cycle of that customer. So, if you want to buy, for example, you're not sure exactly what you want to buy, you can go rent a few and try them and to be able to go through that process. If you are a seller, then you can provide a try before you buy. So someone can actually, take your vehicle away and, see what it's like before they buy that vehicle off you. And we know that customers that engage in that process are much more likely to buy than someone that's just making an inquiry. So, and we can then provide all those products and services to enable that entire process to occur, including the protection products, etc. So it really makes a lot of sense to be able to provide those full product suite.
You're a founder-led business. You're a founder-led CEO of a public company. How do you describe your team, and how do you describe the culture that you've built over the last 10 years or so?
Yeah, look, we very much are, a tech-enabled business. So, we spend a lot of time on tech, a lot of time on automation, a lot of time on building tool sets to enable our customers to self-service, to be able to be better at knowledge and information and data. And then, how we move fast when we can see those tech innovations that we need to make. So that's certainly, something that we focus on internally, is how we leverage technology to be better, how we leverage technology to provide better levels of service, better levels of customer engagement, and really be able to do things at more scale than what we could if we were less on the tech tools, if you like. And our team, certainly likes that. We encourage everyone to have that tech focus and tech process, and it's served our business very well.
The market can be cruel, the market can be kind, and various tech companies, people want to value them in different ways, all through different cycles as well. When it comes to being profitable or growth at all costs and balancing growth with balance sheet, how do you go about that, and your thinking now?
Yeah, I guess when we first went onto the market, we were very much a growth stock. So, we were growing at, kind of roughly 20%, on a annualized basis, year over year. And that's what people wanted to see when, tech stocks were the flavour of the month and growth stocks were the flavour of the month when they first went on the market. I think, since then, the market has changed a little bit, and the number one focus is on profitability. And, how do we make sure that, we have a profitable business, and then, growth second to profitability. And so that's certainly something we've had to go through in that evolution of our business, and to be able to make sure that we can do both successfully, but we must be a profit-led business above all else. and we must then kind of fund that growth through that profitability. So it's been an evolution to shift the company into that mindset and into that mode of focusing on the bottom line over the growth line. And that's certainly the journey that we've been on the last couple of years.
And the balancing act of new initiatives and research and development versus also right-sizing below. Is there a focus now? Is there a strategy now on a clear defined, whether it be short, medium, or long term?
Yeah, we've certainly got a kind of 2030 vision right now that we're executing towards. We believe that we can be a company that has extremely good bottom line and also can continue to grow, whether it be through geographic expansion or be through product vertical integration as part of that. So we sort of segment our business into teams to enable that process to occur, but every team, every individual knows that their number one metric is EBIT performance. And so, that's certainly the number one thing that we look at in the business. And then how do we make decisions around being led by that, but also enabling, great customer outcomes and the ability to execute towards that 2030 vision in terms of, product innovation or growth innovation.
There must be some hard decisions to say no to particular things or put money here and just think about that EBITDA metric and that profitability metric as you mentioned the team's on board in terms of that metric. But how do you balance that and think, okay, well, this is okay. We just can't do this because this is our underlying goal now.
Yeah, I think, as a founder, probably more than anything, that could be a challenge because, you really want to, grow the business from nothing and you want to see it continue to grow and you want to build new product and you want to, go into new markets and you want to look at M&A opportunities and whatever it may be. But it really comes down to sort of, believing in that long-term goal and being able to execute towards that, having a great executive team that buys into that vision and can also work with each other and challenge each other on those outcomes. And then, and the board as well as part of that, to be able to execute together and work together on those outcomes. So, all those things sort of play into that process as part of it to be able to really generate a strong metrics-driven result as opposed to sort of chasing the shiny thing, if you like.
Being a 2030 goal 4 years out from now, there's probably going to be some hard numbers or hard things that appear during that because you're optimizing per se. The market is sometimes very short term in the thinking, and I don't want you to commentate on the market per se, but some little punch in the stomachs along the way, but you're like, no, this is all par for the course.
Yeah, look, I think a great example of that is our decision to strip away investment in bookings that aren't profitable. So, we can make decisions to spend marketing dollars on short-term bookings in certain regions, but we know it's actually not going to return any numbers to our bottom line. And all it does is just prop up a GTV number, but it actually doesn't do anything, or actually is negatively impacting our bottom line. So, we've had to be disciplined in that approach to say, yes, we know GTV hasn't grown, but it's because we're focused on profit. And so, it's about educating the shareholders and investors around, being aligned in terms of making sure that we are a profitable business that can leverage that profit to grow in the future. And that's really sort of what we've been spending the last 18 months on doing.
So if you look at the last 5 years of the market, they might say we're looking at GTV growth, and then the next year they're looking at revenue growth, and then next year they're looking at EBITDA growth, and then PAP growth, and et cetera. And it's that education piece you talk about, because someone might see this big, huge headline number 4, which I think it was 29% or something in the last quarter in GTV, and go, oh, the business, oh, it's cooked. So you just have to understand and educate the market to say, look, this is part of our strategy. this is a big fall, but look at our revenue growth.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly. And
Or
that also means that,
revenue decline as opposed to revenue growth. Yeah.
yeah, correct. And that also means that, that those numbers, if they're getting further apart, if we're seeing GTV decline, but revenue decline at much, much less number, it means we're in a much more efficient business. And efficient businesses and good businesses are what people should invest in. And so, that's really what we want to build, is this engine that is highly efficient, highly scalable, and at the end of the day, can deliver some fantastic bottom line results for shareholders, but also have some great upside in terms of what we can do more and more of in the future.
I'm curious around the biggest tailwinds in your business, and also from a founder CEO point of view, that you've had some good times and rocky times as being a founder of a listed company per se. What are you excited about now?
Yeah, I think from a tailwind perspective, we are in a market overall that is pretty strong. It doesn't have huge impacts to it, and generally when you've got tighter economic conditions, the camping sector does pretty well. So we're pretty excited about what that means for us, and we're also in a sector where we have the baby boomers are aging. They want to get out and do more travel. They want to be able to have access to easy domestic holidays. We can provide that. People want probably more than what they used to want in terms of a camping holiday. They want more mod cons. They want easier access to them. They want on demand. They're moving into apartments, etc. And so that all those things sort of play into our process in terms of being able to provide that as a great holiday for everyone sort of around the country now, the other countries are in. So there's some really good opportunities there. From what gets me excited and the opportunity, I think it's the fact now that one of our biggest challenges traditionally had been insurance. So we had, every time we wanted to enter a market, every time we wanted to do something different, we wanted to provide a different asset class, or we wanted to expand the way that our customers used the product, or whatever it may be, we were going back to insurance companies saying, could we please do this? And so great example of that was is off-road. So a lot of people in Australia, they want to go off-road. They want to take their caravan or camper onto Fraser Island, for example. And an insurance company may say, no, sorry, we don't want you to do that. So now, as our business, we control that decision making. And so we are the ones that actually ultimately look at that risk profile. We look at the data points around that. We look at the opportunity, and we make that decision whether to have that included in the business or not. And so now we have that ultimate control to be able to say, hey, if we want to put a new asset class on, we want to start doing 4 drives, we can do that. We don't have that blocker from an insurance company making that decision anymore. So we have a lot more in our control, and that also means that we can leverage that investment that we've made into building this insurance company to be able to insure lots more. And ultimately, some of those customers will choose to become marketplace customers. So we can leverage that in terms of both our revenue growth, but also our marketplace growth in the future.
It sounds to me like, from going back to the beginning of the podcast, the origins of the business, that you're solving a problem. And then from that problem, there's been other problems that needed to be solved, and you've organically grown and to try and solve those problems over time and refine, and insurance pops up and you've solved that problem, etc. I'm curious now, as the founder of the business, how do you describe the business where it's at now yourself, from those early days, and where you would like to take it?
I think the great thing is that there was always some problem point or leverage point or bottleneck in the business. So whether it was insurance, or whether it was education as to what we do and how we do it, brand building, tech platform, you name it. But we've pretty much solved all those things now. So, we're at a great point, because now really all it's about is just getting more customers onto those things that we've built. We're in an amazing position to be able to do that. And that's certainly in the Australian market, why we're also very excited about the team from JB being on the register as well. They're the largest manufacturer of RVs in the Australian market. They have a huge network of dealerships and partners. So the ability for us to really be tightly integrated with them from a customer perspective gives us the ability to promote that insurance product, promote the marketplace, connect all those things together, through the largest distributor in that market. So, I think that's going to be a really great way for us to leverage that into the future.
Justin Hales, CEO and founder of Camplify. Thank you so much for giving us a bit of an insight into Camplify, a 101 about the business, the early days, the tough days through the COVIDs, or the good days through the COVIDs, or whichever way you want to put it, some challenges along the way, and where you are now and where you want to be. I really do appreciate the update. Looking forward to keeping in touch and following the progress.
Thanks, Chris. Always great to talk to you.